I want to get to Dr. Myers.
Uh-oh.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Jeez, I appreciate the invitation.
Not a problem. I know we've been crossing paths, missing each other. You know, you had gone back to the States for a while, as you do, and then we had the pandemic, and I've been wanting to get you back on the show here for a while, but because of first the borders were closed, and I think you got stuck in the States for a little while.
Yeah. We had to terminate our field trips and so on.
Oh, I know. Gosh, the last time you were on the show, we had a whole schedule of, and I had signed up for one of those, and I really wanted to go on that one. I know one was going to be over in Jaramillo at a crater up there, and I was really looking forward to that. I'm kind of hoping that you haven't given up on that.
You know, we're very patient. You know, we may even outweigh Baru over there.
Yeah. So, you know, as you know, obviously, you know, as everyone knows, there's when we got the back end there of Hurricane Eta, it caused a lot of damage to the countryside. I mean, mainly, you know, landslides. I mean, the flooding and the rivers overflowing were bad enough, but there have been hundreds of landslides and washouts, and you know, especially on the other side of the volcano, of the volcano up there in Cerro Punta and all those areas over there.
Yes.
And we got some over here too. We got a pretty good amount of them over here, although they weren't as severe. But I frequently go up the Jaramillo Road. You know, and you go down past the Hotel Oasis and Boulder, and you get that road up there.
Yes.
And over the past, I guess maybe 8-9 months, I've noticed as I'm driving up there that the road is separating in areas, and you know, it looks kind of like, all right, it's going a little bit at a time, but then someone's posting these videos of it just breaks away, and I, you know, I don't know anything. This is your area. I don't know anything about how the geology is here, except for what you taught me last year, and that. But
well, we'll keep working on it.
Yeah, I know, right? I need to go back to school, but because I'm really interested in this stuff. You know, I had when I was a kid, I was 12 years old. I was just merrily walking across grass, and a sinkhole opened up under me.
Oh my!
And I fell in, and I was stuck in there for 12 hours. And it was a life-changing event. So I had spent, I don't know, years and years just studying things like karst topography, and, you know, where is it good if I'm going to move? And especially I was planning on going to Florida. You know, where can I go in Florida where I'm not going to get sucked into the ground? And then coming here and meeting you, and then going on some of your field trips and just talking to you in general. So I want to start with local here, if you don't mind. The Jaramillo Loop seems to have a good 24 areas where it looks like the road's going to just slide down into the canyon at any given moment.
Well, it really helps to watch what's happening to the landscape around you, and this is one of the major objectives of our field trips that we take, is to teach people to read the landscape, and that's the way you can avoid unexpected happenings along your highways and so on, is to be watching things and to keep an eye on some of the clues that give you a preemptive strategy possibilities for avoiding dangerous situations.
So it's not always just seeing the road separated, because sometimes, from what I understand, and I think you've explained this on a previous show, that you don't necessarily have to see that in order for a landslide to occur, right?
Well, basically, you don't have to look very far or in very many directions around here to see that the landscape to the north of us right here is all mountains.
Yeah.
With very, very steep slopes and vertical walled canyons and these sort of things. Wherever you have steep mountain slopes, it doesn't matter where in the world they are, there are going to be those kinds of earth movements because the slopes are almost always unstable. So a slope that's vertical, you want to be very suspicious of, or any angle. The critical angle for a slope is about 35 degrees.
Okay.
Above that gradient, the land tends to be very unstable. So you can take a measuring device out and measure the slope of the land on your property or anyone else's that may be affecting your property, and get an idea of what sorts of things are possible. But in addition to the steep slopes, that is to say slopes above 35 degrees, the other factors are basically rainfall. And what happens is that the ground, the rocks, and the soil on the steep slope get waterlogged. The water, the heavy rains builds up the water in those slopes, adding weight and also reducing cohesion of the material. So it's not unlikely, because of the origin of these rocks that are around us here. They're mostly volcanic ash.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
And that volcanic ash was mud when it came here from the volcano. It was a mud flow, and it's just hardened over time. It's been partially cemented with chemicals being leached from the upper parts of the soil and deposited down in amongst the grains of the sand or silt or whatever it is of the ash. So what happens then is that we have an intrinsically unstable topographic situation here in this particular area,
So does that
mainly
mean,
because of its volcanic origin.
so that means that you've got this hardened ash, and then you got soil on top of it.
Yes.
Right. So and the adhesion that you were talking about was the adhesion of the soil to that ash, to that
Well,
hardened ash.
not exactly. The lahars are basically a mixture of very fine glassy ash, and you'll see them using it for grout around here, sieving out the stony parts.
Did not know that.
And making these gray piles, which they use for grout when they put a tile floor down, and whatever, they do that. But in the soils here are full of this glassy ash. It's glass, okay? And you look at it under a microscope, it's pretty clear, about 70% glass.
Oh, so it's actual glass.
Yeah. So water goes easily through that stuff, and it also leaches chemicals out of it very quickly because of the high surface area of the glass. Okay?
Yeah, okay,
So,
that makes sense.
and it leaches certain chemicals out of that glass and deposits them further down in the soil, you see? And so the more water you have running down through the soil, the more stuff is leached out. And of course, the water itself adds weight to the slope.
All right, you mentioned weight earlier.
And then it reduces the cohesion of the materials, so it can easily turn to mud,
So is that
back into mud.
Is that the same thing as liquefaction?
Yes.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
Because I see, and I know, I know to a lot of people, y'all may not be in, but this stuff fascinates me, right? So I'm driving through Alto Kiel and Los Araños and up in Jaramillo and Jaramillo Arriba, and I see that I can't, adequately explain, 45 degrees is a right angle. That would be a perfect cliff, perfect. So 35 degrees isn't that much off for that. And I see homes and farms and coffee plantations and more homes built on what seems to me impossibly steep slopes all over the area here.
They are almost impossibly steep. That's why they come sliding down.
So, and some of these homes, I mean, look like they've been there for quite a while, and I'm always thinking, when? when are these houses just gonna slide off the side? You know, obviously you don't want anyone to get hurt. I mean, you know, but
okay, we're gonna go back to lesson 1 here.
Go back to
for
lesson
a
1.
second. try to make sure we got this right. Okay,
yes, please.
So basically, whenever you have a steep slope,
right,
and you can measure it with a easy measuring device with an angle, you know.
Yeah.
35 degrees is a slope that you can't walk up the slope of 35 degrees. You're putting your hands on the ground to pull yourself up, okay? That's how steep 35 degrees is.
All right.
It's about the angle. If you were to pile a pile of sand, the angle of that sand pile is going to be about 35 degrees. It's
like a
called
ladder almost.
The angle of repose, it's called.
Okay.
My angle of repose is horizontal.
I know.
But
you have put us all to, you know, just, I got to tell you all that we went on a hike, I think it was a waterfall hike, and you put us all to shame. All of us young kids out there where we got our water bottles and we got our sticks and we're struggling to get up this, and then here comes Paul, just flies by us, no stick, no nothing, just climbing up this mountain. They're just waiting for us. So you got so far ahead of us, you put us all to shame. That was very impressive, my friend.
Oh, jeez. Well, anyway, what I'm saying there is that one way to the material on a steep slope, the steeper the slope, the more it's moving. Basically, the more it tends to move, the more often, and the bigger the movement. All right, generally speaking. So you can look at all these steep slopes all around us, all on both sides of the Caldera River, and you can look up those slopes, and you have to realize that wherever you see a steep slope, you have to figure that if that's a very steep one with exposed boulders or whatever in it up there, that thing is moving. It's not stationary. It's moving slowly most of the time.
Okay, so
and then when it gets full of water, you start reducing the cohesion of the material. It starts to get loose, and now it starts to move faster. So one of the ways to see this sort of thing and to use as a clue, watch the center line in the roads on these mountain roads here. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, you'll see where there's cracks coming right across the road.
Yes.
And you will also notice that those cracks are not straight across the road. They form sort of a curve.
Right. I have
like
noticed
that. And the reason it's a curve is because that piece is slipping it's a spoon-shaped piece.
Right.
Okay, it's spoon-shaped in 3 dimensions, so it's breaking away at the top, and the break will go across the center line of the road. And you'll see where it's offset.
Yeah. A
little bit. That's your clue, man. It's going down.
And that curve, that spoon-shaped curve, I've seen a lot of that. You know, obviously on the side that is on the cliff side.
Yep.
And I've seen it looks like it's breaking away. Yeah. And that crack starts at the edge, comes in towards the middle of the road, and then goes back out towards the edge.
Exactly.
Like a giant scoop of ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you have a landslide, the water goes down along that crack and lubricates the crack. Okay, so now it tends to slip really easy. So it slides down the hill, and the basal, what they call a slip surface of the spoon-shaped mass of rock or soil and ore, that moves down, and it at the base of the slope it forms a large lobe like a glacier.
Okay.
And it spreads out, and if it's got a lot of mud and water in it, it may go for miles that way.
Yeah.
Down the valley. And that's what they call a mud flow.
Okay.
Okay. So it starts and down the hill at a steep angle, and as it goes down the hill, the base of it flattens out until by the end of the movement of this mass, it may be horizontal.
Right.
So
Covering a larger area.
It's a curving surface.
Yeah.
So, and then what happens is you get these stepped up the slope, a whole series of them, all spoon-shaped, one above the other. Now what happens as this thing slides down, as this mass slides down the hill, the back side of it, which was at the top, now rotates back toward the hill.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So the road does this. It rotates.
And then flips.
No, it doesn't flip. It rotates. Now what happens, when it rains the next time, you get water collected in that thing.
Yeah.
Because it's facing back toward the top of the hill.
Makes a little pool.
So it becomes a sort of a curved pond of water. Now that feeds the water down along the crack, adding more weight to the slope and reducing the cohesion and making it go even faster.
So just because a landslide stops at some point doesn't mean it's done.
It slows down.
I get so nervous when I go. My housekeeper, a gardener, lives up Jaramillo, and every time I go up that road, I know when you go up the first one, that bridge had washed out at some point, and they fixed it. When you go around that first curve and that second curve, there's a huge area. It's probably 60, 70 feet, where they've actually got poles with yellow tape along the edge of the road. But the crack is still on this side, on my side of the road. It's still in the road, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And then a little further down, there's another large one where trees have already disappeared.
Yeah.
And the fence is already, the railing has already disappeared.
Yeah,
and this continues up. And I don't know how people drive over. I was behind a delivery truck last week that was delivering giant water tanks, 600, 800 gallon water tanks for septic systems. And this truck took up the whole road. And I'm behind this, and he's on that road. And I'm like, this is a 30,000 pound truck. How do you not get nervous driving? I'm convinced that I'm going to be driving over that section of road, and I'm going to end up down in the valley with all this mud and dirt, and they're going to have to dig my body out. How worried should we be? I'm not trying to be an alarmist or anything, but having fallen into a sinkhole, this kind of hits close to home, right? So, how worried should we be about the Jaramillo road? That's really a very highly trafficked road.
Yeah, it is. It is. We go up there on our field trips. Our first stop is a viewpoint up that road.
Yeah.
And what I do going up that way is we watch that road going up the hill. Right. Start right at the Oasis Hotel.
Right.
And you go start not long before you're heading straight right up that very steep grade.
Yeah.
Now, as you go up that road, you'll see a whole series of these curving cracks coming into the road. They're moving every time it rains. They move a little more, and sometimes if it rains a lot, they may move a lot.
Yeah.
And but you just have to figure that slope is going to keep doing that as long as it's steep like that. That's one of the characteristics of steep slopes.
Yeah,
they do that.
But is those areas that you just mentioned, are those prone to just maybe a separation, or are those prone to like a major landslide, where the whole side of the mountain or that area is just going to let go?
Well, normally what the most of the movement goes during really heavy rains, or just afterwards. But because the slope is overcharged with heavy water. Water makes it really heavy. It adds a huge amount of weight to that slope.
Yeah.
And but groundwater normally takes a while to drain out of those soils, but it tends to flow down along that slip surface, and you have to figure that there's going to be a whole series of those slip surfaces, one behind the other one, and like steps going up the hill.
because there are houses below that,
Yeah.
those cracks, and there are houses above that. And I see some of those driveways, and I'm like, how do you even get up those driveways? So I know those are really steep. I know the whole area, all the houses up there are on.
Yeah.
Are on, and I worry about the people that live there. I worry about, obviously the adults and the children. And I just worry about there's going to be this event that is going to be catastrophic.
We're tempting fate, That's what life is, I guess.
I guess so. Right?
But another thing is sort of interesting for those of you who may be interested in the landscape around here. You'll notice that there's a new scar on the east face of Peru.
We're looking at it right now.
Yeah, you can see it right from where we are.
How long you figure that is? How?
Yeah. Now that's a different kind of a thing up there, because that's not volcanic ash up there mostly. There's a lot of hard, solid rock up there.
Uh-huh.
And that's what they call a rock fall or a rock avalanche or something. But it'll go down a pre-existing canyon, and it'll leave a scar, because the rocks break away from that steep cliff face at the top, and they they in turn break loose as they fall. They break loose other rocks, and pretty soon there's a whole pile of rock rolling down that canyon.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll come way down on the mountain.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty good, if you look at it with a binoculars or a telescope, it's worth looking at, because you can see it's bigger than it looks from here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. From here, it looks just like a little, like you said, a scar.
Yeah.
But how wide do you figure that might be?
Oh,
just
I'd
best
say
guess.
Probably 100 feet, maybe.
Yeah, and then lengthwise, that's got to be
about
500,
a half a
600,
mile
about
anyway.
Half a mile, yeah.
It goes way beyond what you can see from here, because there's a ridge
right, I can
behind breaking your view.
And there's no homes up that far, are there?
Pardon me?
There's no residences up there.
No, fortunately.
Because you had pointed out at one point when I was at your house, a home that you said was the highest. It was the highest private residence in the country, and it wasn't there. It was over towards the other side of that ridge.
But there's you have to realize that the face from here in Boquete, we're in Alto Boquete here, I guess.
Yeah.
And we're 3,000 feet, or what, 100, what?
I think we're at 3,400 feet. I had
1,000 meters elevation. But that face is 8,000 feet high.
Okay. Yeah, it's
because
up there.
the summit elevation is 11,400 feet. So,
right.
And we're 3,000. So that face on the mountain is 8,000 feet. You got to realize that
that's
it's
another
an
5,000.
immense mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's someone. I think Mark Heyer pointed that out. He made a post on that. He goes, "Hey, Baru's got a new scar on it," and when he said that, it was you couldn't really get a good view of it because of the mist and all that. But
Happened
the next day,
a couple of weeks ago,
he posted a picture of it. And all right, I want to shift just for a second. There have been a lot of little earthquakes in the area. And when I say the area, I mean like from here down to Pedregal and off the coast. I mean, there have been more than the usual. There's usually a lot of little ones no one ever notices, but there seems to be an uptick, a major uptick in these little quakes. Does that have any significance to anything here?
It's hard to say, because I guess I would say that people like to wonder about what it might mean if you have a cluster of earthquakes like that. But basically, you have to know more than just the periodicity of the quakes. Yeah. Well, they tend to happen in clusters like that in time. But the thing that's more important is to be very watchful about the ones that have something to do with volcanic eruption.
Right.
and those will be fairly persistent ones, and
Okay.
you will see the same focal point for the earthquake, for a whole series of earthquakes coming from the same place.
Okay, so they won't be scattered around. They'll
Yeah,
be kind of
they will be.
localized.
They tend to be, and they will normally form. If a major earthquake is imminent, what normally happens is that you see a cluster of earthquakes happening, originating from a linear source. That is to say, you can plot them on a map, and you notice that they're all along a line.
Like a fault line?
If you're, yeah, and if you see that, then that's time to be thinking about moving
Moving away,
whatever.
yeah. Is there? I hear a lot of people referring to earthquakes that are either deep or shallow. What's? Can you tell us what the difference is between a shallow earthquake and is there any significance that we should know about? Or will be interesting.
Well, most of the earthquakes that we have around here are originate from a source or a focus of about a depth of about 10 kilometers. 10 kilometers, plus or minus one maybe, but that's a good average. And these are considered shallow earthquakes.
Okay, I was going to ask. Yeah, those shallow.
Some, for instance, where huge layers of plates of oceanic crust are subducting beneath a thick continent, like in China.
Right.
There you get earthquakes with a focal depth of over 200 kilometers.
Okay, well, it's significantly.
They're
deeper.
deep ones.
Yeah.
The deep source ones, though, tend to produce much larger earthquakes.
Okay, so that's the difference. The shallow ones are these little shakes and little tremors
wobbly
we get.
things.
Yeah. But
we haven't had any earthquake sourced volcano sourced earthquakes around here for a while. That would be suspicious that an eruption is imminent.
Yeah.
That the signs that will indicate an eruption is imminent is you start smelling gases and steam at the vents and things like that, and they're your warning signs. The earthquakes, they're more difficult to read.
Yeah. Well, as far as the eruption go, now this I know because you have taught us, your students over the year or so, that this is not the kind of volcano that's going to spew, mile-high molten lava.
No,
it's just it won't, because people have said, "Oh, I don't want to be here when the thing goes off because we're going to be covered in hot lava," and I'm like, I don't think so. I remember Dr. Paul saying it's not really that type of a volcano.
No, this volcano though is unusual in the fact that in two ways. One, the eruptions are spaced fairly long periods of time. Mm-hmm. On the average, about 400 years on the average. The most recent ones, anyway, we're about 400 years apart. We're about 500 years right now. We're a little overdue. But, that's one of the aspects of this volcano. In other words, it's not one that's going pop, pop, pop all the time, like some of the stuff in Nicaragua or Guatemala or something.
Right.
The other thing about it is that the eruptions, when they do occur, tend to be very violent. Explosive, and they produce a huge cloud of ash that builds up in the sky, 80,000 feet of ash in the sky, and that's going to fall eventually.
Right. So don't come down. What goes up?
And but I'm simply saying that the ash that comes down from a volcano can be very hazardous because we build houses here with the idea that they're not going to be covered with a foot of rock.
Well, yeah, yeah. Chances are most of them are
Yeah,
going to be
but
flattened.
so I mean, you then you because ash is rock, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and you get a foot of ash on your roof. It's not like snow; it doesn't melt.
Yeah, and then I guess if it's raining or there's water
Yeah,
involved,
yeah.
now you've just basically got concrete.
Yeah, it makes
so-
makes mud.
So this volcano, our grandfather here, is not the kind that's gonna like we see in the movies and like Hawaii when it's just like molten hot rivers are flowing down the side. But you
Well-
had explained at one point that in addition to the ash, there are mud flows.
That's right.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about what we might expect here if
Well-
such a thing should happen?
When you look at Baru, you see two mountains. The tall mountain with the steep slopes.
Right.
That's the one that's impressive,
Yeah.
and that's mostly hard rock. Okay, and that part of it has very, very steep slopes, and that's why we get rock falls that we've been looking
Right,
at up there in
yeah.
that slope. Those big, steep, almost vertical slopes of solid rock are breaking away and sliding down, rolling down. But then the other part of the volcano most people don't really see until they're pointed out, is that all the way around Baru Mountain, the big tall mountain, is a huge collar, a thick, some places thousands of feet thick of volcanic mud flows called lahars.
Uh-huh.
They're bouldery mud flows
Okay.
with boulders in them.
Is that what those ridges are that we see? When I look on the map, I could see there's a ridge around the main big guy.
I'm not sure what scale you're thinking about.
I'll see if while you're talking, I'll see if I can-
Jaramillo, for instance, is a ridge, isn't it?
I guess it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and all along that ridge there are little bulges of volcanic rock sticking up, and those are old vents where the liquid lava was fountaining along that opening vent, a fissure eruption.
Okay.
And of course, Volcancito is actually a little mini volcano.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Hear that, residents? You're living on a little mini volcano.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of stuff around here, boy. I'll tell you, it's interesting.
And again, I can't say how disappointed I am that we didn't get to do that schedule you put together, because I
Well-
was really looking forward to that.
Well, we're going to start again. We're going to start doing some more, I think, in January. And so keep your eyes out and your ears to the
I'll be
Chiriqui
posting that.
radio.
So okay, you got Baru, right, and then you have Jaramillo, and the range. If you're in Alto Boquete and you're looking north, right, to the left, you can obviously everyone can see Baru,
Yeah.
and you can see Jaramillo to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Those mountains that are directly north of us, where Alto Kiel is and Los Ananios, is that all part of the same?
It's a whole field of volcanoes, older than Baru.
They're obviously dormant, though, right? Or are they?
Well,
Or are they?
who's to say whether they're sleeping or not?
So this Baru isn't the only volcano we got.
Oh no, there's hundreds of volcanoes in Panama, older ones.
Wow, and this area too.
The whole Cordillera over here, all these mountains are basically volcanic. Yeah. So it's really, you only scratch the surface when you focus on Baru or Volcancito or whatever. They're the recent ones, and they're therefore the tallest ones
Right.
around. But there's this whole field of them out there, stacked like pancakes,
Wow.
one on another.
That's amazing. I remember from last year, you were explaining there were two things that stood out to me. One was the climbing rock. You had mentioned that.
Yeah.
You had some. I know you got some information on that, but you also mentioned that the Caldera River isn't where it used to be,
That's right.
and it's not as low as it used to be. That it was a lot lower. A lot. I mean.
Well, it's probably about in the same place, actually. What happened was that a hot ash flow came down the Caldera River Canyon, and it filled it up to about 200 feet deep. This is white hot ash. It's at over 1,000 degrees when it comes roaring down that valley. And it stopped only a mile north of town, northwest of town.
You're not running away from that, are you?
Yeah, and so it displaced the river, so now the river can't flow where this hot, hard rock is now. So it moves over. It starts flowing down the edge of this, where the canyon was filled. There's an edge there of the flow, right? And the lahars, the older lahars of the side of the valley are softer, so the river just moves over and starts redigging its channel along the edge of that ash flow.
So
It's just pushed it to the north.
So the land that Boquete is built on is actually a couple hundred feet higher than in elevation than it was before that white hot ash flow.
I don't know that we can say because when you look at that ash flow at the climbing rocks, you can actually see the bottom of the flow, the ash flow.
Okay.
And there's one place where it's exposed, and it's actually flowed on older lahars. You see, that happened about. Let's see. I can't remember what the date is on that, but it's pretty old. It's one of the older parts of the volcano.
That climbing rock, you had mentioned at a couple of points on the show last time you were on, plus on one of our field trips, that is unique to
yes, it is. Yeah.
It's the only one.
Well, I guess I'd say I hope it's unique.
Well, that we know of. Okay, let's go that way. The way that it looks. I can't even. I don't even have the words to describe what it looks like. I mean, it's such a beautiful sight to me when I look at it. That just the way it was formed, and it almost seems like it's man-made, right? I mean, it's the perfection in the ridges and all that. What circumstances caused that to happen? And the pattern is just, it's mesmerizing. I sit there in the car with people, I want to go up take pictures. I'm sitting in the car across the street just staring at this thing because it's a fantastic piece of natural art, to me.
It is. Yeah.
What circumstances would have had to have come together in order for that to happen?
Oh. Well, you have to. I was saying one of the characteristics of Baru is the fact that its eruptions are violent, and when this molten rock forces its way up toward the surface, it reaches a point where it starts contacting the water that's in the rocks, the groundwater, at maybe a half a mile down. All right. So when that happens, you start forming hyper pressure steam. All right. So the water is made by the tremendous heat in this lava that's coming up, and the eruption at the surface often is explosive when the liquid molten rock reaches the surface and it explodes. It just converts everything almost instantly to glassy ash that's pushed up into the air. Now, when that comes down, a lot of times it comes down out of this cloud of ash very fast. It comes down you see a central column of rising ash. It's very hot, and then it goes up to a certain height, and then this cloud starts to collapse, and it comes back down, but it's still really, really hot. 1,000 degrees.
Yeah, it's a little
That's
warm.
really, really hot.
Yeah.
And so that cloud of ash now flows down the canyon, the Caldera Canyon, and it's flowing at 60 miles an hour. It's moving at 60 miles an hour.
1,000
so
degrees,
it comes
60 miles an hour.
ripping down that canyon, and it reaches a point where it's lost most of its heat, and it's become solid glass because it hasn't had time to crystallize.
Right.
This is made into glass, so that that the rock there that you're climbing on is mostly glass, glassy ash.
Right.
Not all. There's crystals in it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But then, as that cools, it contracts because things contract when you cool them, right?
Yeah.
If you start at 1,000 degrees and you cool it down to surface temperature, that's 1,000 degrees change in temperature.
Sure, in a short period of time.
It starts, so it develops cracks, cooling cracks, and these cooling cracks reflect the pressures that are developed as this contraction of this glassy ash goes on, and you get these column-like cracks. They form into columns. It's called columnar cracking or jointing.
But still, like
Yeah. So
perfect five-sided, you know.
Yeah. And in this particular case, very unusual that those columns are almost horizontal.
Yeah.
Rather than normally vertical, where they come out across a flat surface.
Yeah.
So what happened was this ash flow was coming down a very bendy, like the channel of the Caldera River today has curves and meanders in it. Okay, and it has nearly vertical very steep walls.
Right.
So it's going to be confined to that curving snake-like channel. And so the cooling surface that it's cooling against is nearly vertical in some places. So the columns form typically right angles to the cooling surface. So they're horizontal.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and wow. And I noticed that not too far, and this was also on the one of the trips that we went on. There's a whole area when you're going up towards, I think it's towards Bahomano, or up that area. I noticed that you pass the climbing rock, you go over the bridge, and as you're coming around one of the first turns, out of the left side of the car, there's an entire, I mean, it looks like an endless wall.
Yeah.
It's just vertical. It's a sheer
the columns
vertical.
are vertical. Yeah.
300 or 400 foot, drops over there. That's all connected? I guess,
and that's
right?
why I can say that flow is a single cooling unit, one flow, 200 feet thick, because the columns are 200 feet tall.
Okay. That's fascinating.
Isn't that amazing?
It really is, and like I said, I look forward to. I know you were talking about having classrooms and then going out in the field, and there were so many things that were in the works that obviously now, because of the pandemic, have been put on hold. But they are coming, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be signing up for those.
We're going to keep your eyes open. We're going to start probably somewhere in January, and I've got about 5 different trips and there's some really unbelievable stuff around Volcano that's exposed in new road cuts over there, and we've got to get over there to look at that. You will be amazed at what you see. And
there was another one the one I was looking forward to was the one we talked about just earlier in the beginning of the show, that somewhere out here there's another caldera, I guess a dish. God, I can't think of. I'm trying to remember the way you'd explained it, but it was another basin, sort of a basin, up over that way that it would really intrigue me. And that was going to be the next one before they shut everything down. I think it was going to be last April.
Yeah,
It was going to be in April. It was your April 2020 tour that I was really looking forward to. But it was local. It wasn't on the other side of the volcano. It was up in here, up in Jaramillo somewhere.
There's a place called India, which is actually an intrusion of lavas that never reached the surface at that point. And that was a place where it came up and out of the ground, and that's an old vent structure there at La India, and it's spectacular, but it's very difficult to get to. It's almost inaccessible. You can't walk right up to it. No way. It's a very bad climb, and it's all forest. It's all jungle up in there.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's some drone footage.
And we had also planned to go on two trips that were unable to take because of COVID, and that was the islands offshore, down beyond, on the south, in the Pacific side. Yeah.
Those islands that just kind of jut straight up out of the water.
Yeah.
Well, we saw those. Day and I and a couple of friends went on a little. Beach hopping thing down there in Boca Chica. And as soon as we left the little, it's not really a port, I guess it is.
There's some of the oldest rocks. They're sedimentary rocks over there. They're not volcanic.
Yeah.
Not directly. They're indirectly derived.
So, living here in this area, and I know we're getting close to running out of time. I wish I had 2 hours. If the warning signs were there and we ignored them or whatever. If you and I are sitting here right now and that volcano erupted, how much time will we have to get out of the way?
Well, probably years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it isn't. If it erupts, it's not like it's going to be here in 5 minutes.
Make people feel that the warning signs are going to be pretty obvious. The one thing, if you smell rotten eggs. The smell of rotten eggs and there's smoke in the air and so on, that's a good warning sign.
Yeah. But when it actually blows, is it kind of an emergency thing where you got to pack up and leave right away? Is that?
Yeah. When I guess you'd say when it erupts, as it probably almost certainly will.
Yeah.
There will probably be a whole sequence of eruptions, not just one.
Right.
And generally the first one is relatively benign, like Mount St. Helens, for instance.
Yeah.
There was all kinds of signs that it was reawakening, and there was its final eruption was. Not in a way, it was a surprise because of what happened along the side. It was events, the whole side of the volcano blew up.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were precursors to that for years beforehand. So I mean, you get a warning, plenty of warnings.
Yeah. But people.
You know that Abuelo. Baru is reawakening. You'll have lots of warnings. He's not timid.
Yeah. So basically, you just ignore them at your own peril because
he's got to roll over a couple of times before he gets up.
Don't we all, right? So what we're going to do, we got a few minutes. I want to let everybody know that when Dr. Myers gets his schedule for his trips, I'm going to be posting that. I'll put it on all the usual places, but I know they're small tours, so they fill up pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
So if I put something out there on the first of the month for 3 weeks later, chances are within the first few days it's going to be full.
Where the COVID is necessitating some real big changes in how we run these tours.
Yeah.
So normally we did a caravan with cars with five
Packed
people.
with people, yeah.
5 people, and we can't do that now. So basically, what we'll do is put 2 in the back seat and 2 in the front, maybe, or maybe only 1 in the front, but certainly just a driver and 1 other. But I mean, we will have to also be careful that we distance ourselves when we're outside the cars
Right.
on our stuff.
Masks and all that.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So for those reasons, the number of people that we're able to take is going to be smaller.
Right.
And so what I'm thinking of doing, instead of running 1 trip in a day, running 2 of them.
Okay.
Back to back.
Because I know the one we went on, there was 15 of us, and we can't be doing that again. Because it was always like, who's got room in their car? People were sitting in the back, you know, with the cargo areas. And it was jammed. I had like 8 people in my car, you know. But I guess with those days are.
We're going to have to be more careful.
Those days are gone.
Yeah.
These trips, my friends, I mean, I got to tell you, I've been on a couple of them, and they're very, very informative because. Paul points out things that you know you look at every day. Mm-hmm. I look at these things every day, and I don't know what they are. That's a cool whatever, right? And then here's a whole history lesson behind this, and a geological history, like going back tens of thousands of years. We were up at a place up off of. Oh gosh, where is it? I know who lives there because they're friends of mine. But we were in their backyard basically, and you were pointing out. You know, this is why the sand is this color here, and it's not. There was striations and all kinds of stuff. Then we went over to the quarry, up off of Volcano Road, which I just thought was just a hole in the ground, you know, where they got rock from. And there's a whole history behind that. So when he says things like, "There's so much to see and do here. There's so much history. There are so many things that you might just take for granted because you walk by them every day."
Yeah.
I hope you get to go on one of these tours. One of the most fascinating things that you had mentioned was, along with me, so many people thought that all these boulders scattered from here to David, you know, were just blown up, you know, out of the crater and flew through the air and landed where they are. Because, well, you know, you watch TV, right? You watch movies and you see these giant, you know, eruptions and these rocks go flying miles in the air, and it didn't happen that way.
No, it didn't.
It was mud flow brought all that. And if this stuff interests you as it does me, keep an eye out for my posts on when these tours are going to be.
I'm going to be doing a talk in January about boulders, the natural history of boulders.
Is that going to be at the Tuesday?
I've proposed in the past that we rename the city of Boquete Boulder City.
Boulder City, yeah. Well, we'd have a sister city, right? Is there a date set for that?
Not. It isn't fixed yet, but it'll be announced within another week or so.
And that'll be at the BCP, right?
Yes,
the Tuesday talk.
Okay,
I will be there for that one.
Yeah.
If you need a ride, let me know.
So we're reduced to only 50 people there now, and we're certain to have come early, boy, if you want to get in there.
Oh, right. Gosh, you know, it's too bad. You know, they can't. I don't know, an outdoor amphitheater, you know, you can fit, you know, hundreds of people.
One of the things I should tell you about is that we're now in the process of putting together a field trip. We're going to have a video camera on the trip, on 1 or 2 of the trips to start with, cool. And we'll convert that to, and I will add other stuff to it. Visual stuff to the video to make it sort of a video lesson, a video field trip, so to speak. So you won't even have to go on the field trip in order to see some of the things.
Yeah, but it's always fun to be there, and to touch it and to see it. Yeah,
we have fun, don't we?
We are about out of time. We've been talking with Dr. Paul Myers, retired geology professor. Knower of everything rock and the expert on a lot of stuff around here, and It's you're a fascinating guy, Doc.
Thank you very much.
We thank you for coming back, and we hope to have you back soon.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on those cracks on Jaramillo Road. I know it's very tempting to drive on the. That's what I do. I got across the yellow line. I drive on the side that's still attached, and it's a blind curve. And every time I do that, my wife is like, "Stop! What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know which is worse, getting hit head on or getting hurled down a mountain." But anyway, be that as it may, keep an eye out. Be careful out there. I'm going to be posting information on the upcoming tours and lectures and all that, so you don't want to miss that. You've been listening to BoqueteNOW Talk Radio on Radio Chiriqui 103.3 FM, sponsored by Big Daddy's Grill, Boulder 54, in the Tap Out Sport Zone. Pasen buen día, mi amigos, mi amigas, hermanos, hermanas. Have a good day, and we'll see you next week.